find a suitable black CEO. They couldn't find it. So many of us, they couldn't find one at Denel. In Transnet, they purged a high-performing CEO. You know, just before they purged Siyabonga Gama, he had reported, you know, a very sterling performance on all indices in that balance sheet and income statement of theirs. Everything was where it should be. But for some reason, they found a reason to get rid of him. Eskom has turned a black CEO into almost like corporate affairs. Where have you seen a CEO that is not responsible for the core business of the organization? A CEO that is responsible for human resources, customer liaison, and others. And then a COO, purely because he's white, he must then run the core business of Eskom. He must run generation, he must run distribution, he must run transmission, he must run the expansion exercise of Eskom. How is that? Why is it that we have a CEO that is not doing those things? Even at SARS also, even on an acting role, SARS could not find a suitable black professional to do this. So from where I sit, we have a situation where black executives are under siege in the SOEs. Black executives are sort of characterized as people that are corrupt, people that are incompetent, that in order for anything to come right, you must just put white people. These black people cannot be trusted. How can we have our ANC government characterizing our people like this? I move on to the 54th conference of the ANC in Nasrec. That conference had come at a time when I think all of us in the movement had come to a conclusion that there was indeed a very slow pace of change. So that 54th conference was a conference that had a theme of radical economic transformation in order to bring a step change in the whole situation, because everybody is aware that the change has been painfully slow and not much has been happening. So this conference was a conference with a determination, because we've always thought that when there are problems, fight them from within. So all the problems, we put them from within the structure, and then we said the structure is going to take resolutions, we're going to resolve these things, we're going to make sure that the economic transformation is where it should be. But then what happened? The first thing that happened is that on the resolutions, one of the key resolutions that the conference had made is one of expropriation without compensation. Now, what was my disappointment in that is that conference resolves on this, but when you look at the resolutions as they are crafted and they get published 3 months after the conference, when most people have even forgotten that there was a conference. We have a conference in December, you have resolutions that get published in March. And as they get published, we look at these resolutions and is this what we actually resolved? We resolved on the expropriation without compensation as a key issue, but the resolution says the issue of land distribution and restitution will happen. We'll use any other mechanism, and amongst the mechanism, this expropriation will be amongst one of the mechanisms. I don't remember saying this in the conference. What is this now? You know? So in my view, I think that resolution was hugely distorted. ANC in Parliament also allowed other political formation to steal the march on it in terms of the land question. Why did it take the EFF to raise this motion that let's have this expropriation without compensation when the ANC had the conference resolution on this matter? Why did they not do this? Why did they not lead the discussion? And thereafter, after Parliament had sort of agreed on this, then again ANC goes and wastes a good 10 months of consultation on a matter that the conference had already resolved on. Why is it that we have to go around the whole country asking the question? But the policies of the ANC, I know that I can't speak for the ANC, but they've got a very good approach into things. They're very methodical. There was a policy conference. That policy conference, before it happened, discussion papers were circulated. So anybody and everybody that wanted to make a contribution had an opportunity to do that. So by the time the policy conference makes recommendations to the conference, this is a fully consulted package. So then the conference decides, and instead of implementing what the conference is saying, then once again we have to consult. So for me, that just said to me, this is a demonstration of people that are just playing for time and doing everything not to do what they should be doing. Whilst we're looking at that, you end up, okay, fortunately, after that 10 months still, then the decision came to the same decision again that, yeah, of course, amend this Section 25. So whilst we're still looking at amending Section 25, then over festive period, all of a sudden, there is another expropriation bill that has been sneaked in through the festive season. But when you look at this expropriation bill seeks to entrench an unamended Section 25. Why is it that we have an expropriation bill that talks to a Section 25 which is not amended when there is a process to amend Section 25? So in other words, you want to create a law to entrench a position which there's been agreement that that position in the Constitution must be amended to make it explicitly clear what is it that we're saying. So what this says to me is that once again, this is a demonstration of unwillingness to actually execute on the conference resolution. So then you say to yourself, Kanti, where are we if we are going to have the highest decision-making body of the ANC making decisions, but when those decisions must be implemented, they actually get sabotaged by the ANC itself? There was the resolution on the nationalization of the Reserve Bank. That resolution has basically been abandoned. I mean, if you hear what the finance minister keeps saying about conference delegates that made this decision, it's actually quite embarrassing. The ANC resolution to establish a state bank is also not gaining any traction. So one is saying to oneself, what is this? It's almost like a PR exercise. The amount of time you take and the energy, some of us coming from the culture of the BMF, we make serious contributions into policy documents. So you go there with the belief that the input that is you're making there will be used. But instead, you spend the whole 5 days in a place, and the next thing, people, when they craft these resolutions, they either distort them or not even implement them and abandon them. Then you ask yourself, what's the point? What is it that we're actually doing here? Triple PFA continues to be a bugbear. One would have thought that after such a transformation-focused conference, that 2018 was going to see the repeal of the Triple PFA or the review of the Triple PFA, but none of the such happened. Instead, we have the Minister of Finance that goes overseas and tells everybody that actually nothing is going to change. So you say to yourself, but where are we here? Mining Charter. Mining Charter has postponed the transformation for another 5 years. How can it be that we have an ANC government that does not challenge a court decision on the issue of once empowered, always empowered? That concept, in my view, is a fraudulent concept. It means if you have a black participant in the equity, as an equity partner in a particular mining company, as an example, and if those black people sell their stake in that company, once empowered, always empowered says, even though you've sold your 30% or 26%, this company is going to be deemed as if you have not sold. This is just pure fraud. It's a serious misrepresentation. It means companies can continue to be as white as they want to be, and the law is going to recognize them as having been empowered. And we have a situation like that that is not challenged. So it can only mean one thing, that there is no seriousness on the issue of transformation. Who would have thought that an ANC government would stand side by side with an Australian company against our own people in Xolobeni? All the Xolobeni people really wanted, all that really wanted was to be fully consulted so that the minerals underneath the soil of Xolobeni must not just be extracted and they just become scavengers. They wanted to be fully consulted so that the proceeds of all that, they have a decent stake in it. But we're sitting here with a situation where our own government is fighting our own people in the rural areas because they are siding with an Australian company that wants to extract and exploit the people there. And you would have thought that our government, with the background that we have in this country, they would be fully behind the Xolobeni people to avoid exploitation of our people. But instead, the government is siding with this company. How is that? Where are the people going to run to? One would have thought, I'm moving on, one would have thought that with the VBS saga, that what would have been done there is to deal with the corrupt elements in that whole situation and save the bank and save the jobs. But instead, they are just destroying everything. So in other words, it's another thing again to carry on the narrative that black people are incompetent and corrupt and all this, when in fact there were certain rotten potatoes that should have been weeded out, and then this thing ran properly. Now, the only black bank that was around is being closed down. Market dominance again has been allowed on the media space with the closure of ANN7, where ANN7 was just being bullied by a multi-choice. You know, if they had said ANN7 or Afro Worldview, if they had said that you are corrupt, if they had said that you haven't got enough audience, if they had said anything, there are too many complaints and all of this, maybe, no, the multi-choice just decides, because we want to shut it down, we shut it down. One would have thought that a leader of society would have intervened, not for Mzwanele Manyi, but for the people employed. 500 odd people ended up losing their jobs. Leader of society did not say one word to save those jobs. Young people. My heart goes out to all those people that lost their job, and something that could have been avoided. I really want to, in fact, take this opportunity to apologize to all the employees of the New Age, Afro Voice, of ANN7, Afro Worldview, for the trauma that they were put through. I want to apologize to their children who were kicked out of school because of this abrupt arrangement. I want to apologize to their mothers and fathers that were depending on their own children that were working in these institutions. All of this could have been avoided only if there was not a cruel and a nefarious agenda behind. And I'm sad that the African National Congress never said one word to try and arrest the situation. 500 jobs got lost in the process. Media diversity has been dealt a severe blow under the watch of the ANC. And this is one of the examples I've just said. People in Gauteng have been complaining about the e-tolls day in, day out, but the African National Congress has turned deaf ears. They just don't want to listen. Kliptown, the birthplace of the Freedom Charter that the ANC is so proud of, is as dilapidated now as it was in 1955. It's a shame. One would have thought a place that has created such a monumental document would have been a shining example of it should be what Tito Mboweni keeps showing us what Kigali looks like. Why can't he create a Kigali in Kliptown? He's got the money. He controls the resources. Is it because they don't care for our people? What is it? I don't know. People of Alexander Township and elsewhere continue to live in squalor and in dangerous floodplains, whilst the politicians are driving around in German sedans. How is that possible? You know, even in the Eastern Cape, when I drive from East London to King Williamstown, I always look along the freeway. There's a village there called Duncan Village. That village has never seen any improvement ever since I've known that place. No improvement. You just ask yourself, Kanti, where is this budget going to? A failed housing project near Dube Hostel has become ruins where Nyaope addicts, thugs, and rapists rule supreme. Our young children and women get raped there daily. And these are the matters that I have raised with the leadership of the ANC long before DA took over this place. In Bramfisher, near Meadowlands, people are living on waterlogged area, damp areas, you know, and these matters were raised, but nobody's doing anything about it. You get told one story day in, day out, but no solution. Instead, you get all these faction-based so-called cleanup things that keep rupturing the organization, causing disunity, causing all kinds of chaos. This cleanup that everyone is preoccupied with is actually faction-based, depends which faction you are in, then the cleanup happens, something happens to you, but in other areas, even if there is a malfeasance, nothing happens. For instance, there's rampant malfeasance at National Treasury, as exemplified by 1.7 billion rand spent with nothing to show in the IFMS project. But there's not even one sentence of rebuke from the African National Congress to say to the National Treasury, what are you doing, who's accountable? The people that are responsible for this are in the ANC, this process. The people that have cost us 1.7 billion, nothing to show, absolutely nothing to show. And this is not old stuff, this is 2018 stuff I'm talking about. I'm not getting things from 1994, this is 2018. A figure of 1.7 billion was recorded there. Our children fall in pit toilets and no one is held accountable for that. So our people have died on the Life in Manyi project. That Life in Manyi is serious tragedy. Who has been held accountable for that? Why is it that when it's others, there's an action taken, when it's others, it's almost like nothing has happened? So I've come to a conclusion that indeed the ANC is tired, the ANC is fatigued, the ANC has reached a point of saturation, the ANC has lost its hegemony, the ANC has lost its moral compass, the ANC is actually now actively reversing our gains. If the truth be told, actually ANC exhibits all the signs of being captured by imperialist forces. The ANC is trapped and unable to liberate itself from the claws of its captors, and therefore should no longer be trusted with the noble task of completing the liberation project of our people. Let's allow the ANC to retire and let's usher in younger, fresh, and uncaptured blood. Yes, I'm a member of a church, so I will give you a scripture. Matthew 5:13, I will give it to you in Xhosa. Matthew 5:13, Matthew 5:13, verse 13. Niyikiwa yehlabathi nina. Ke ukuba ikiwa ithe ayaba nasongo, yothiwa nina ukuvakaliswa. Ayisalungele nto ukulahlwa phandle kuphela inyathelo ngenyawo ngabantu. We need a fresh approach to complete this historic mission of liberating our people from the bondage of the legacy of apartheid and colonialism. Let's allow the younger generation to lead. Let's allow those without a CODESA baggage to lead. Yes. I present to you the African Transformation Movement, my new political home. ATM is the only organization with the proper credentials to take us forward. ATM has no baggage or history of corruption and unfulfilled promises. ATM has values that are very sound and universal. ATM is funded by its own members. Not by wealthy business people with their own agendas. So there's hope that because there's ATM is going to ensure that the will of the people is what is actually going to be is going to transpire, not the will of the funder. ATM is a breath of fresh air, led by young people who prioritize peace in dealing with others. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the president of the ATM.
How do we welcome servant Mzwanele Manyi servants? Mzwanele
Okay, so Mzwanele Manyi there has just announced that he's joined the African Transformation Movement, speaking very critically about the ANC and where it's at the moment, saying that it has been
Let me take this opportunity now. When I introduce myself as Solomon Gomani. I didn't introduce myself as servant because I was honoring the press briefing by Mzwanele Manyi, not servant Mzwanele Manyi. So formally now, my name is Servant Solomon Gomani. I'm the program director today. I will start by introducing the ATM leadership, starting with the president of ATM, who's Servant Vuyolwethu Zungula. He's gonna raise his hand so that everyone can see. And we also have in our midst the Secretary General of the ATM, Thandi Sizwe Kukula. Servant Thandi Sizwe. We also have in our midst the Treasurer General of the ATM, Melikaya Koto Itiji. And I would also like to introduce the Honorable Servant, the Chairperson of the ATM, Servant Mandisa Mashiya. Myself, Servant Solomon Ngomane, I'm the National Deputy Chairperson, serving under Servant Mandisa Mashiya. Formally so, let me also introduce Servant Mzwanele Manyi, who is also the member of the National Executive Committee of the ATM, formally so. The President will obviously indicate what role will Servant Mzwanele Manyi will play within the National Executive of the ATM. I will now take this opportunity and hand over to the President of the ATM. What's going to happen is that just after the President of the ATM has spoken, we'll allow the members of the media to, if they have any questions, and then we are just going to give them that space to ask questions, after which now time will turn. Over to you, Servant President. Over to you, Servant President.
Peace in our land.
Peace in our lifetime.
Peace in our lifetime.
Peace in our land.
One God.
One human race.
One human race.
One God.
Thank you, servants. Deputy Chair has already welcomed and greeted all of you. So I think it will be wise for me to just shoot to our message as to what are we saying to the media today. First and foremost, we want to introduce the ATM. I think many stories have been written about us. This is the first time that we'll have any engagement with the media. We want to put it that ATM is the coming together of all citizens, irrespective of their background, affiliation. Although the formation of the party was inspired by spiritual leaders, it is not an extension of a church, but rather a political party that is formed to transform South Africans to a better society that upholds and lives by the values of an ideal state. The value system of the ATM is a foundation for building and creating a new and responsible character to serve and lead South Africans. Our core values are peace, ubuntu, transformation, servant leadership, as well as accountability. We have a strong belief that in the spirit of these values, we will work tirelessly to ensure that the economic development and growth will directly respond to the aspirations of all South Africans, particularly the poor communities in our country. We are therefore confident that ATM is here to govern. And after the 2019 elections, we plan to transform the lives of all South Africans for the better. ATM will govern with South Africans to ensure accountable and servanthood government. ATM held vibrant and successful provincial launches in all 9 provinces from September up until December, and we also had our national manifesto launch on the 1st of December in Mangaung. We'll be going around the country unpacking this manifesto so that the people who could not make it to Bloemfontein understand what is it that we are saying as a party. However, I want to highlight just a few policy positions. The first thing that we are working for, or that we want as a party, we want to reinstate the capital punishment. In the country currently, the taking of another human's life has become a normality. It has become so accepted that we are okay with 57 people dying on a daily basis. And South Africa is a rape capital of the world. There is so much that is going wrong in terms of how we deal with the crime in the country. And if you check, we've had prayers, we've had marches, we've had even the 16 days of activism, but nothing is changing. Rather than the criminals having fear, it is the ordinary, peaceful South Africans who are having fear each and every day. Therefore, we are calling for a reinstatement of the capital punishment to deal with severe crime cases. We want to enforce a labor convict prison system. We are aware that as we are outside living our lives, working, our taxes fund the education, the food, and everything that the inmates do. Now, it does not make sense that we, as a people who are law-abiding citizens, are funding the people who have wronged us as society. What are they doing to earn back their place back to society? Now, it is for that reason we are saying each and every criminal that is in prison will work for the state, because now is the time for all of us to build the country. It can't be that when you go to prison, it's as if you are going to a hotel. Because we need to send a message to young people and everyone that crime does not pay. We also want to decolonize our economy, because how the economy is still structured, it is still structured as if we are living as a colonized country. Now, if we do not deal with this issue of decolonizing our economy, we can never go anywhere as South Africans. We want to make sure that when we engage or have businesses with the rest of the world, we are not price takers, rather we are price givers. It is us that determine the deals and we give direction, because it is us that have the raw materials. And we want to export finished products rather than exporting raw materials and buy at a later stage at very high prices. If you look at the case of Japan and Korea, they do not have the resources that we have, but they export to us many products that we buy at very high prices. We also want to have a legislative reform in the country, because everything that should happen in the country should be in the ambit of the law, because we want South Africa to be a law-abiding country. Now, it is for that reason we are saying we'll look at all the laws that we have. For example, you've got your PPP, FA, your CIDB, immigration laws. All of those laws, we'll have to look at them and find that these laws, we need to make sure that these laws are speaking to the will of the people. We'll also expedite the formation of a state bank, because South Africa is a developmental state. It is unheard of that a country like ours does not have a state bank. A bank does not have profit as its motive. As a state bank will be a key mechanism to transform our country economically. And also we need to state that as ATM, we don't understand how, for example, the government will increase VAT when they want increase in their pockets. However, they do not apply cost-saving measures, because currently there are plus minus 17 million grant recipients in the country. Each and every time a grant recipient is paid their grant, CPS charges 10 rands. So if you multiply the amount of people times this 10 rands, I think it's 170 million per month. Now you can see how much is being spent by government, whereas if it used a state bank, would go far in terms of saving the cost. ATM is the future. There is no better time than to be in the future now. ATM, as a peaceful vehicle of good governance, will work with all South Africans from all walks of life who are ready to transform South Africa to a peaceful, stable, and economically viable state. Therefore, we are calling all South Africans who are selfless, patriotic, and have an understanding that now is a time to decolonize South Africa as well as transform it. So we are welcoming all of them into the ATM. It is against this background that we are welcoming 7th Mzwanele Manyi into the ATM. For the purposes of the people who are engaging with us for the first time, we regard ourselves in the party as servants of the people. So when you see one another when you see us addressing one another as servants, because we know that the purpose of any politician or any political party, it is to serve the people. So, 7th Mzwanele Manyi will head up the policy and strategy division in our movement. We do believe that he brings with him tons of experience, skills, as well as the capability to contribute towards the development of our country. However, we want to note that as the ATM, we've been maliciously stigmatized as a party that was formed by disgruntled members of the ANC. We see this as an attempt to limit the free political participation as stipulated in our constitution. Because I think the first article that was written by us, it was sometime in April, and that newspaper, which is Sunday Times, never consulted or got our side of the story. Now, each and every article that came from there is referencing back to Sunday Times. Sunday Times would never spoke to us to understand who are we. So we see that we are very unhappy that we've been stigmatized as such, because our purpose, remember, we are not a party that has broken away from anyone. We are a coming together of South Africans who are saying it is time for all of us to contribute towards the development of the country. Our strength lies in the communities where a number of our servants, as well as our supporters, have dedicated their time in ensuring that the message of the ATM is known throughout the country. The proof is the successful launches that we've had. We've had launches from the end of September, each and every weekend up until the 1st of December. If the venue was a stadium, the stadium was full. If the venue was an arena, the arena was full. And that is a result of the servants who went out to the public. We further want to thank each and every dedicated member of the ATM for their work, and we urge them to work even harder as we draw closer to the election period. In conclusion, media and servants, the ATM will return the governance of the country to the people. That is what we are committing ourselves to. I thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the conclusion of our briefing. It is time now for the media who have got questions to raise those questions. What we're going to do is that we're going to take 5 questions at a time, and after that, we'll see where we end. As you ask a question, please introduce yourself for the purpose of all the audience.
Hi, my name is Jamie Mighty. I'm from a blog called Revote. I want to ask about the constitutionality of your first talking point today, which is the capital punishment. Because the Court ruled in S versus Mzwanele that capital punishment was something which was at odds with our constitution. How are you actually going to be able to achieve that policy position if the courts have already ruled, the highest court has already ruled that this is in contravention with our values as South Africa?
Thank you. Another?
Hi, it's Kelvin Wiggles from ENCA. I'd just like to find out from Mr. Manyi, the President, what is the ATM's ambition in the upcoming elections? How do you expect to fare at the polls? And then, Mr. Manyi, do you want to go to Parliament? Is that what your ambition is? And are you not using the ATM just to raise your profile? And do you commit to sticking with the party if they fail to make it to Parliament and fail to secure enough votes?
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Michael Ladner from PWN. Mr. Manyi, when you say that the ANC has failed, it's fatigued, there's a lot of things that go here. Isn't that also an indictment on you? I mean, you've been the member for 30 years, so that should also carry weight and also responsibility on you. If you say this party has failed, there's no moral compass, what does that mean about you in that party? And number two, when you talk about the ANC being captured, another question also comes back there. We have a state commission regarding state capture inquiry. You were implicated directly into the Gupta. So when do you, and you say you don't recognize that the Guptas have captured the party, but how do you then expect us to believe that you're saying it's captured by imperialist forces? You deny that there is a capture when it comes to the Guptas. Is that because of your relationship with them? And my last question, what exactly will you be doing for the ATM? I mean, they were formed in October, and you haven't joined until now, launched in October, rather, and the elections are in May. You're joining only now, less than 3-5 months. What exactly are you bringing to the table? Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Bongile Tumago, SABC News. Mr. Manyi, to you again, sorry, Tumago, we have to. But my question is relating to the fact that you're saying the ANC, like Twanga was saying, is fatigued and you actually seem disappointed with the ANC, hence you sort of left. But before you leave, what sort of steps did you take to make the point that all the challenges, all the problems that you see are emanating within the ANC are sorted out before one could say you gave up and brought up?
Last question.
Okay. Zingisa from the Sunday Times. First of all, Mr. Manyi, let me apologize for that mistake on the evaluation of Christ. I take the punch. Granted, but that's what happens when you don't want to speak because you remember I called you yesterday. But I understand, but I'm just apologizing for getting it wrong. But at least I got right about your new political home. Anyway, my question, maybe to pick up on what Gordon was saying. I mean, you've been a member of the ANC, and you were in government, DG of Labour, government spokesperson. I mean, someone would say maybe now you saw that you stand no chance in the processes that you hold with the ANC now to go to Parliament. I mean, isn't that maybe self-promoting or careerism at the very least to go it? And also, as he says, I mean, if this party fails, will we see you resurfacing elsewhere, or are you here to stick with it no matter what? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, so
the first question is about capital punishment. Can we start with that, Mr. Or
no, let's start with him.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right. I'll answer the questions just in context without saying which came from who. I'm sure people will pick up what is, yeah. You see, I said that we had a conference in 2017, which conference was meant to be a watershed conference in terms of raising the issues so that all the things that we're dealing with, once and for all, must be solved. Okay? So internally, I would have been part of that process. In fact, I was part of that process, of all the processes leading to the conference. I participate in my branch. I participate in, even at conferences, at the commissions, especially the economic conferences, I participate, I raise issues and all that. I didn't just wake up. So this has been coming for some time. Some of the issues that we've been raising them using different heads. Before I even became the president of the Progressive Professionals Forum, I was president of the BMF. Since I was BMF president, I think since 2006. Since then, we've been raising the issue of triple PFA up to now. This thing is not getting resolved. I mean, in the 2015 NGC of the ANC, President Zuma read a declaration. In that declaration, out of the discussions of the conference, there was a declaration that indeed this is going to be repealed. In 2016, I can give you all kinds of speeches from President Zuma, from Deputy President Ramaphosa at the time, to say triple PFA is on our radar, something is going to happen, and all that. As we speak today, triple PFA is still there. So we've been making all kinds of inputs, all kinds of some of all kinds of inputs. I mean, some of you that follow me on Twitter will know that I'm a very disciplined person. I would never go and talk rubbish about the ANC. And I would always to say to people, if you want to differ within the structures. This is what I used to do, respecting Rule 5.1.3 of the Constitution of the ANC. So I've dealt with things internally within the ANC. Now, if you do things like that, right up to the conference, the highest decision-making body, and then you take resolutions in that conference, these resolutions are then meant to correct all these things. Then the first year of those resolutions, then hell breaks loose. And I've gone through all the things that happened in 2018. And by the way, you will see that even in 2018, I've only mentioned basically 2018 decisions, not things that erupted in 2018 that were long coming. It's things that were decided in 2018 that if it was a different somebody making the decision, a different decision could have been taken and all that. So you can see that we now got to a situation where after the radical economic transformation theme had been endorsed by the conference and all the resolutions having been passed by the conference, but then the leadership of the ANC decides that irrespective of what the conference has said, we're not going to do that, we're going to do something else. What then do you do? You know? So I was not about to go around shouting at people, insulting them publicly and all that. So I decided that there is no integrity in this process. There is no genuineness in this process. So the best thing to do is just to go. So here, talking about the list process, I've never been a list kind of person. I've always been doing my things. I'm a professional. So I'm not your career politician. I'm forced into this situation. I was running a business and I was not in politics. I make political policy inputs because I wanted an enabling environment in business. Now I was hounded out of business. I'm in the politics now, not out of choice. I was hounded. So it's clear that if you have a political dispensation that is not favorable to you, you're not going to succeed even in business. So the best thing is to come and fix the politics. This is my posture. The current political environment does not create an enabling environment for me and many others. So I am here to fix the process, and I've looked around to say which party best can do this. And ATM presented itself as a party with sound values, people that are not opportunistic. By the way, even ATM, when I listened to their before they got formed, they also tried to speak to the ANC and so on, and it's out of desperation even themselves for ATM to be formed. So you have a party that does not want to listen to anybody. So what do you do? You know, what do you do? This ATM itself is a party formed because the people that were in charge, they just don't want to listen to anybody. I'm told they didn't even want to honor the meetings. Then those that were in the thinking at that stage decided that, well, rather let's do our party that will talk to the people. I think it's also the funding strategy came from that kind of thinking to say, let's fund it ourselves so that we don't have somebody outside that is going to dictate what is it that we do. Yeah. So I'm here with ATM forever, as it is. On the issue of these captures and story and so on, in the commission, I said, there has never been a time when the state has never been captured. This is what I said. So this thing of you saying denying capture and all of that, what I denied is what was being said about my role in GCIS, that I enabled corruption, when in fact I stopped corruption in GCIS. And I gave evidence. By the way, I still take the cap in terms of all the witnesses that were there reciting poetry. I'm the only one that provided evidence. I provided hard evidence to show that the person that was accusing me actually cost GCIS a good 7 odd million and all that. In fact, as we speak now, that very same person is facing fraud charges and all that. This is just fact, you know. So I came and I actually stopped the corruption that was happening at GCIS and all that. So anyone that says anything about me, there's never been anybody here that has been able to produce any evidence of any nature. It's just stigmatizing and just talking and just saying corrupt, Manyi, Guptas and all of this. But it's just as far as it goes. But I'm challenging anybody here. If you say I've stolen 1 cent from anyone, raise your hand and so on. And I know that I sit here, I'm a disciplined member of Bantu Church of Christ. We don't steal in my church. I don't steal. And I say, if anyone has got information to the contrary, telling you now, in fact, you won't even find it because there isn't such a thing. That's why I was annoyed. I had to go there and produce evidence. So there's no such a thing. I think I've done all, yeah, unless there's a question that I've missed. I've covered. Okay, thank you. So the President will talk to the issue of the capital punishment.
The chairperson will talk to that.
Oh, the chairperson. Okay.
Let me, before I speak about the capital punishment, indicate that ATM is here to govern, which therefore talks to the second question. We are not having any intentions of opposing any ruling party or political party. We are not working so that we can tomorrow go and oppose any ruling party or political party. We are here to take the leadership of ATM with all the people of South Africa into government. Hence, it is important that we understand that at the time, and that was a very good opportunity for us, whilst there was the so-called media blackout, we were given a very good opportunity to go on the ground and work. We are very sure of the people that are members of ATM, that are supporters of ATM, that are loyal people that want to see the change happening, and it is going to happen with a vehicle of the ATM. Therefore, we cannot go into government whilst people are having specific aspirations, amongst those aspirations being to review the legislation. Now, when you review legislation, you look at every other area of legislation, including the Constitution, to see how can you make it a point that the provisions of that Constitution are talking to what the South Africans want. And therefore, it answers your question about how are you going to see the reinstatement of the capital punishment. There are processes in South Africa. We respect the Constitution of South Africa, but that does not mean that when the time comes and people are voicing their dissatisfaction with certain things, we cannot go back and have a look at that. And we can only do that, servants. When we are in government, we are not opposing anyone in government. Thank you.
Another round of questions to those that haven't asked first, and then we're gonna do follow-up questions. Servants from media.
No, just wanted to ask Mr. Manyi whether, his decision to meet the ANC would he not have made the decision that Dr. Nkosazana and Mzwanele won last year.
Have you captured that?
Yeah.
Okay. Next. Continue.
Joel Todd from Public News. I just want to understand from the leadership of the ATM, the BNF has made a call that all the political parties must unite. Of course, they've excluded the ANC. Is the ATM going to be heeding that call?
Capture that. BNF has made a call that all political parties will unite. Okay. Next. Anyone there?
CNBC Africa. My question for the President and Mr. Manyi. President, South Africa right now, as it stands, the IEC has 563 registered parties. Why do you need another one? You spoke about, also to the President again, you spoke about the fact that this party has no baggage. But Mr. Manyi does. And lastly, to Mr. Manyi. Mr. Manyi, after some of your endeavors and your current public profile, considering the fact that what you did at the State Capture Commission was offer contrary evidence, it did not exactly exonerate you. So some say there is still questions that would need to be answered on that part. How are you the right person for this part?
Okay, next. Yes, yourself.
My question is directed to Mr. Manyi. Mr. Manyi, first I would like to find out if you know anything about the party which is supposed to form called All African Decolonization Congress.
Okay.
If so, the statement which I have say that you went on the 19th to meet with the Gupta for the funding for this organization. Confirm that.
Have we captured that? Last question?
Okay, it's Jordan again from ENCA. I'd just like to begin with the ATM, which was formed by the South African Council of Messianic Churches of Christ. Your documents in front of us also has a lot of references to Christianity in it. So are you saying that you're a Christian party, you're not trying to appeal to other faiths? And what is your position towards the LGBTIQ community? And then the second question is, Mr. Manyi, you still haven't answered whether or not you want to go to Parliament. I just want to remind you of that. And then, as much as you're saying that you're not disgruntled ANC members, there is a perception which exists that the forces of radical economic transformation, or people who lost out at the ANC conference, are now trying to consolidate themselves within this new movement. Have you held any meetings with people who were coming out to support President Jacob Zuma when there were marches for Zuma must fall? And then the last question that I have here for the chairperson, you're saying you're not in opposition to the governing party, but you are by your establishment an opposition party because you are not in charge of government. So I mean, you haven't clarified what exactly you hope to do in the elections. Are you setting yourself up to be an opposition party, or do you have any coalition partners in mind if you do score seats in the national election?
Okay, thank you. Over to you, leadership.
Okay, let me start.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Let me follow up to you. We cannot be an opposition party right now. We have just been established. We are not even in parliament. We are going to go to the elections for the first time. So we are currently not an opposition party to anyone. What we are saying is that going to the elections, our intention, that was your question, what do you intend, is not to be an opposition. So we are going to parliament to govern, not to oppose anyone. I think this is very clear. The question that was asking whether we are going to take heed of the call by BLF to unite black political parties. No, we are not taking heed because we are not a black political party. So I'm sure that we're talking to black political parties. Not to us. The last question really relating to our establishment. This is not new. Every time we talk of the ANC, we refer to it being established by church. Also, ANC stands out there and say, in 1912, the people who made it a point that ANC is in existence today. And that did not make them to become Christians. And we are very much, therefore, not afraid of the fact that Christians, and specifically the Council of Messianic Churches, came up with the feeling that the South Africans actually need salvation. And therefore, we are open to any other religious or belief. We are not closed. We are not a Christian organization, and we are not a church. Thank you. And therefore, if therefore your question of LGBTI community was related to us being Christians, you've got it all wrong. Thank you.
Okay. If NDZ had won, would we have left the ANC? This, you see, you would notice that generally, whether it's in this briefing or anywhere, I don't deal with individuals, I deal with issues. You must really get used to this, I deal with issues. I've painfully gone through various bullet points here, illustrating issues, real issues, not who did what to who and so on. Give you real issues. I'm telling you about the resolutions that were taken, the resolutions that have not been implemented. I'm telling you that progress that should have been made, the progress that has not been made. I gave you the actual specifics on this, and then you come around here and you say if this one had, I mean, if NDZ had come in and implemented these things, there would be no problem. But if she had come in and we still have the same lackluster performance that we've had in 2018, indeed, I would have also gone. So I'm actually an issue-based person. I don't deal with people. You say the outstanding questions. I don't know. In fact, I give an opportunity now to give me those outstanding questions. You know, with the commission, they are very fair. They submit questions to you. I don't have any outstanding question. And maybe it's with you. And I'm giving the opportunity now that if there's any outstanding question, ask it here in full view of everyone. But from the commission, there is no outstanding question. Maybe it's with you, but I give you the opportunity now that you can ask that question. On the AADC, yeah, you know why I love this party. I love this party because it deals with, in South Africa, my biggest crime has been to have something to do with the Guptas. And I don't apologize for it. Make no mistake. I do not apologize for having bought business from the Guptas. My deal with the Guptas was all above board. Absolutely nothing to apologize for and all that. So if you think that for me, I don't have what I call Guptaphobia. That when you say Gupta, then I'm going to get under the table. No, I have no issue with them at all. Guptas, the courts of this country have not found them guilty on anything. NPA, in fact, as we see it here and now, has actually even withdrawn the charges because of lack of evidence. This is where we're sitting. So Guptas are not guilty in South Africa or anywhere in the world. So this preoccupation, this phobia that you have, don't share with me. I don't share it. So for me, it's not like a scarecrow. When you say Gupta, then I'm going to get scared. No. Yeah, it ran away. It just doesn't, it doesn't mean anything. Now, the AADC, linked to that, the AADC, and if by the way, Guptas were to give me money any day, I'll take it. But I've got no money from the Guptas. So if they were to wake up somehow and say, hey, Manyi, here's 20 million, I will take it. But they have not offered me any money as things stand right now. And I don't know this date you are even mentioning as to, and so where you get the date, but it doesn't matter. It's just not true. I didn't go to fundraise from the Guptas. In fact, this party had not even got to the AADC. I was going to start the All Africa Decolonization Foundation Congress. Yes, I was going to do this party. But in the process of doing that, I was advised by somebody that I respect that, did you know that there is this other ATM in the space? And when I looked at the ATM, wow, I said, wow, what am I doing here, wasting time? When I looked at their values, these people, they're doing exactly what I'm going to be doing. And in fact, I think the issue about the ATM is quite a sad one at another level. If I look at their YouTubes, the amount of good work that they have done, but they were never covered by the media. If I look at the amount of rallies that they have done, all 9 provinces, they were never covered by the media and all that. I don't know whether there's a media agenda against the ATM or what is it. I am really hoping that media is going to be fair. I am really hoping that media is going to be fair and give ATM its due coverage. This party, let me tell you this, the only challenge to this party as things stand right now is only the African National Congress. That's the only party that we're looking at like this, face to face. All others are spaza shops. All others. ATM is an organization that is here to govern. It's not like our chairperson has already said here. This is not an organization that is taking chances. It's got the it's got the critical mass right now. So I just thought, what's the point of wasting time with the AADC when values-wise we agree? And also it just kills this nonsense about who funded you. This one is funded by members themselves. So that kills your Gupta phobia. Do you want to go to parliament? That's the decision of the party. I'm not the minister, I'm the servant of the people. If the party says I must go to parliament, I'll go to parliament. Meetings with other people, you know, one of the things that I have given myself in this country is freedom. I have the freedom to meet with the Guptas. I have the freedom to meet with anybody. I meet with Andlem Nutama when I have to. I meet with Gaitin when I have to. I meet with Kenny Gunan. It doesn't matter. Name them. President Zuma, if I have to meet him, I meet him. You know, whoever, you just name it, I meet them. But absolutely nothing to hide. And I have no explanation to give to you. But I can tell you now that me, I am free to meet everyone I want to meet. I meet everybody, anytime. So I don't know why is that even an issue. Thank you.
I noticed that there's a question that was saying there are too many political parties. And I'm not so sure whether therefore that was saying, and therefore we don't have a right to have another political party.
Yes, and I said there was 562.
Okay. So are you comfortable that we are here now, we are in the space? Or you want the president to specifically answer that?
I asked 2 questions to the president. One was the number of parties, 562, and adding to that, why do you have that?
Okay.
And I particularly asked about Mr. Manyi's own baggage, vis-a-vis what he told us.
Okay.
So party has no baggage.
All right. Let's start is why do we need another political party? Political parties serve or exist to serve the people. If you were to look at the local elections or 2014 elections, 562 political parties, but 19 million people actually voted, plus minus 20 million South African citizens who were eligible to vote did not vote. That clearly shows that there's a void in the sense that the people do not believe in those political parties. And we are here to represent our people. Now, even if there's 1,000 political parties, if our people are saying, form a political party and represent us, that is okay, because that is the democracy that we want. It is not about the number of political parties that exist in this country. I'm going to find it very difficult to answer this question as to Mr. Servant Manyi's got baggage, because we don't know any baggage. He went to the commission and he was not found wanting. And I want to remind you, he's formerly from the ANC, which has an integrity commission. I do not remember at any given time when he was asked to present himself in that integrity commission. And so it's difficult for us to say we deny Mr. Servant Manyi the right to be part of our party because of perception that has been created. because we're a party that does not discriminate. It would be very unfair of us to discriminate against a South African that wants to transform the country. So all people who live in it can enjoy a high quality of life. Thank you.
Mr. President, you still haven't responded to my question about S versus Makwanyane and the death penalty.
The chairperson responded to you.
No, there was no response to that. Can you guys speak to it properly? How are you going to execute that when the court has ruled that it violates the rights of the
No, I think the response was very clear that as ATM, we will obviously be reviewing policies that are in existence. That also includes the constitution of the country. So she even indicated that that supposedly takes care of your question. So I really don't know how do you expect that question to be answered, or you want it to be answered the way you want it to be answered.
The thing is, to review that constitutional provision, you need a 75% majority in Parliament to actually amend the Constitution. Is it your case that you guys are going to get 75% this first time around?
She indicated that in these elections we are going to vote and we are going to govern. And we are not governing as a minority, we are governing as a majority. Any other questions? Other questions, sir? Can we? Yes. This is your opportunity. We gave this opportunity to yourselves, so you can ask. Abegas, this is gonna be the last round. And if? Yeah. Just hold on.
From the City Press newspaper to the President. I just wanted to ask, you shared with us some of your policy positions, but I didn't hear anything about young people. Looking at you as you're young, but I didn't hear anything that addresses specific young people and what they're going through, business or unemployment. Is there any policy position that addresses that?
Another one?
Yes, just my last word. Mr. President, yes. We've been indicted here as a media that we don't really give, Mr. Manyi said, time to small political parties. But other than here, other than us, what have you done at the grassroots level to make sure that you campaign for this confidence you have that you will win the majority of elections in less than 4 months' time, because they're in May? So other than just saying that the media does not cover, what have you done on the ground? Because we've heard that the ANC has failed, right? What have you done? Okay. And Mr. Mike, to you, you were GCIS Director General. You went on to become also a media owner for a while. You were an ANC member for 30 years. All of that has ended in some sort of way, not very good for you. So how will this stick? What exactly have you seen that you've done wrong and you're improving on? Or are you just hoping and praying that this will go right?
Okay. It's Governor here. I'd just like to find out, what experience does the ATM have that gives it the confidence that it will be able to take over government? Do you have any members who are serving in government? How do you picture your first cabinet with? And then secondly, what is your confidence based on? Could you tell us how many members the ATM has currently? And then which organizations or other groups have endorsed the party?
It's a simple question. The party before has been associated with the former president of the ANC and the country, former president Mr. Mr. Manyi liked and supported at some time. Can you please provide some definite clarity in that regard, please? Thank you.
Do we have the last one? Yes?
I just want to ask about the prize making as opposed to prize taking that you mentioned as your economic policy. A lot of the countries that set prizes do so as economic blocks. How are you guys going to be able to navigate the African economic blocks to actually enable Africa to be a price maker as opposed to a price taker, considering that South Africa specifically has aggravated other countries within the bloc by taking policy positions which are deviant from theirs?
Okay. Over to you, leadership.
Would you just carry on? All right. So I wanted to give him a chance. This guy is asking a question and then disappears. He wanted to know. Okay, that's why I was wanting to give the president a chance to speak first.
Yeah,
so that he's.
I think you should wait for him.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. All right. Let me start as to what have we done to campaign in the communities. This process did not start in 2018. We registered the party on the 20th of June 2018. However, the process took a number of years because we had to consult and engage with many parties and many organizations. As we stand, we've got a multitude of churches that are supporting the party. We've got a multitude of community-based organizations that are supporting the party. And most importantly, wherever that we've gone to the people are in full support of the party. So hence we're saying we have this amount of confidence. The association with the former president, it is something, again, we do not understand. And I want to repeat my statement when I said the first article is on the 8th of April in 2018. They are referring to a meeting where I'm the one who was directing and informing one of the churches as to the formation of the ATM. Not even once did the media or anyone who wrote that story from Sunday Times inquire with us to say, this is what we think, what is your view? Now we believe that they were very unfair in terms of going to the media, publishing stories without getting our side of the story. Now, each and every article that followed after is not in any way saying according to this event or according to this meeting that you as a president held with so-and-so. It is referencing back to the Sunday Times article. Now, we do not have any association with the former President Zuma. We are not a party that has been formed by whoever that is associated with him. And even the marches that they were held in KZN, they were not organized by us. We've never been part of any march. Maybe what is confusing is that, yes, we are born of churches. Maybe the marches were also church people. Maybe we need to have an understanding as to this is the kind of church and this is the other church, not brand the churches as if when one church does one thing, all of the churches are doing the exact same thing. I'll hand over to the chairperson to continue.
There is a question about the experience, whether we've got experience or experienced people to govern. I'm not so sure in 1994 when the ANC took over whether it had experience, but currently they do have experience, and all South Africans are really wonderful. Currently, all South Africans are really concerned about that experience. We really need some fresh air, guys.
Was it going to speak? Yeah. Okay. Let me start with the one of price making, price taking, and all that. Firstly, you would have heard the president that our position on the economics is that we believe in a decolonized economy. So we want South Africa to stand its own ground, first and foremost as a country, so that when we deal with any other country, even at a bilateral level, we must be able to look that country in the eye, because we're sitting here with huge resources. Before I even go to the continent, just South Africa alone, if you look at our platinum reserves, if you look at our magnesium reserves, if you look at our chrome reserves, the list goes on. We're a country that is well endowed with minerals, and yet we behave as if we are playing some second fiddle to these countries. If you look at countries like United States, Japan, and all that, when they make their projections about how many cars they're going to build and all that, their raw material they depend on our raw material for all of those things. So therefore, this new government of the ATM is going to be aware of the strategic importance of the mineral wealth in South Africa alone, to say, how do we position ourselves in the global space with the mineral wealth that we have? as it were. This imperialistic colonial approach, where we sit here as an extraction ground for the West, will come to a grinding stop when we take over. This is our approach. What we will do when we take over, we will obviously have discussions with the rest of the continent. We'll discuss with the SADC bloc to make sure that we speak as a region. We'll speak to the rest of the continent. Whatever was the government position today, just like the position of the Constitution today, it's what it is because of what we have. As soon as ATM comes in, everything changes. That position will be reviewed. That position that would have made South Africa to be looked at with jaundiced eyes by fellow African countries. So all of that will change because we are here as African Transformation Movement, unapologetically African. Africa is a center. Africa is where humanity comes from. So we are very proud. We have a rich history, a rich heritage, not only country-wise, but even continental-wise. So we'll be here as ATM to position not only South Africa, but we will speak to the other African leaders to ensure that the entire continent must take its rightful place in the globe. This is really how we're placed. So the question is, how will this work and so on? You know, this is a very funny question. You know, in the corporate world, I've spent at least in this 30 years, I was in the corporate world. And I've worked for different companies. So I've worked in the mining sector for at least 10 years. I've worked in the banking sector at least 6 years. I've worked in the ICT space. I've worked in FMCG and all that. So, and I have gathered enough experience in all these sectors. In fact, I think this is a situation made by God. With all the experience that I have, we will be policy makers as ATM and that are informed by the situation on the ground. We will not be making policies in a vacuum. You're talking here to somebody, when you want to make a policy on the auto sector, I personally would have spent a good 4 years within the auto sector, as it was. So you're talking here with people that have got serious corporate experience at executive level. So all of that is going to be what one uses to make sure that the policies that we make are policies that understands the business environment, not some theoretical something about what Karl Marx said or whoever, all of those kind of theories. No, we are going to be pragmatic in our approach because we want to make sure that we create an enabling business environment, as it were. So that's really where all of that experience comes in. And also, having been in government is also a very good experience. I know exactly the whole process of how to make the law, as it were, from beginning to finish, as it were. So I think being in this space is exactly my next point to be in life. So I really think that I'm at the right place at the right time.
The question was about our young people. They are unemployed. What is ATM going to do? If we listened to what the president was saying during his statement, one of the fundamental aspirations of South Africans, and particularly the policy position of ATM, which we hope to soon call you into our policy conference, is that we are going to decolonize the economy for the betterment of a black child. And when we are saying that, we're talking the transformation that Servant Manyi was talking about, that we have made strides in South Africa, but now we have just not even reversing, but we have made a U-turn. And in that U-turn, we have forgotten that we've got young people, and particularly young people in general, but particularly young black people. So as this leadership that is also predominantly young, we know what are the frustrations of our young people, and that is our priority. Soon we'll be putting that together, and it will be available to you. Thank you.
What gives us confidence?
And investments. Thank you. Let me deal with this question of numbers because I think it, in a way, came up. One, the question of membership will always come as a result of a process of recruitment of people to join the ATM as a party. And that is a continuous process, it's a program. And members of the ATM, they actually recruit each and every day, and people join every day. So it will be wrong for us, as we're sitting here as the leadership of the ATM, to actually give you a figure, while in actual fact our members right now are busy recruiting people to join the ATM. It's a continuous program. No, that you want me to estimate. Remember, I'm the Secretary General, so I don't base my answers on estimations. The membership has to be audited by the organization so that we tell you that on Monday this is the number of the membership that we have actually came up with. So I can't because that will turn into a speculation. Number two, then what is it that gives us this confidence that we are going to actually win? The ATM is having structures all over the country. There's no province that we don't have structures. From branches to the provincial level in each province. Yes, of course, we're busy launching branches in those areas. In some areas where there are no branches that have been launched. So there is a lot of work that is being done in terms of campaigns, and we get responses from all our members and structures in each and every day. We are not armchair revolutionaries as we are sitting here of the National Executive Committee ATM. We are leaders who are actually working on the ground with our own members. So we are sure because we are aware of the response. Thank you.
That was the last round of questions. Thank you, and thank you very much to our servants from the media who were able to come here. And we'll obviously be inviting you in our rallies as we move around. Please, I think maybe you are going to uplift the media blackout that you were subjected to. So we request that you should positively respond to that. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Half past 6, morning live. Go home about, yeah. After this. Yeah.